night, St. Lucia, and thank you for tuning in to Newsmaker Live. Trending in the news this week was some interesting topics. It would seem that we have some anal retentive inmates in St. Lucia. I think that some of the inmates at Bordelais have been a little bit giddy, I guess one would say, considering the largesse that was bestowed upon them this week, with the Taiwanese government giving them a funding for their block making machine. But really, St. Lucia, carrying contraband in your private parts, I must admit that when I heard the news, I really thought, in the words of Papa Jugbois, that it was women hiding it in their pupua tobacco. But to hear that it was men hiding cell phones, Blackberries nonetheless, in their buttocks, I must admit that that was not, that did not come to my mind at first when I heard the news. But then I guess when the term keistering came into play, then, you know, it became clearer. But obviously, we are doing something good at Bordelais, and it says, and all of the good that is happening, we cannot, or the agents at Bordelais Correctional Facilities cannot relax their guard as it relates to contraband being banded in the prison. So bravo to the Bordelais Correctional Facility for being able to stop at least on those two occasions the contraband going through. I wonder though if someone had been trying to reach that inmate, if the phone would have rang, and if you're standing butt naked and there's no possible place and the phone is ringing, would he say it's not me? Just curious. But speaking of inmates though, it brings to mind the boys training facility, the boys training center, and the scandal or the incident, the situation that is happening or was happening during the week with the young alleged teen killer. I mean, it's really sad. It's really, really sad when you have young people who have been so affected by life at such a tender age being remanded or sent to the boys training center because they're juveniles and they can't be kept anywhere else. Being able to walk in and out of that facility at will, threatening the staff, and even in the face of corporal crime, a murder or murders, from what I understand, being sent back to that facility, it is tantamount to somebody who's just maybe stolen panties off of a line, a clothesline, being sent into general population with hardened criminals. So when you take this obviously disturbed young man and place with other kids who are just there for want of a better place to place them, I wonder what kind of implications could arise out of that. So again, bravo for the Bordelais facility for stepping up and commissioning the juvenile detention center at the Bordelais facility, and bravo to the boys training center staff for standing up for their rights and standing up for the other wards of the BTC. You know, sometimes there are facilities and resources available and we just leave it there. It's just there. And it's not until there is a crisis or something happens in our backyard are we forced to look outside of the box to find a solution. I think that is something that we have been crying and asking for the longest while a juvenile detention facility, a proper juvenile detention facility, away from wards who just are having a bad time at home or have been involved in petty misdemeanors, to mingle with those juveniles nonetheless who have already shown a tendency towards violence, and experts would tell you that that would just be trending upwards and out of control. Another issue that we've heard quite a bit from last week, we've been hearing about those fires. What's up with that, St. Lucia? I'm beginning to ask myself whether we have serial arsonists in St. Lucia for the number of fires that we've had. Now, granted, some of these fires have been happening in various parts of the island, but still, it is an inordinate number of fires, and a lot of St. Lucians are now finding themselves dispossessed and out of homes, and it's heart-wrenching sometimes to watch the affected persons on television crying over the loss of everything, and in particular those families that have children, and the children have lost everything, their school books in particular, and all other educational paraphernalia. It's really heart-wrenching to see that, and we all know the times that we are living in, and to have to experience that, knowing that parents would be unable in the immediate future to replace that, and that they have to depend on the goodness of, you know, their fellow neighbors and citizens of St. Lucia. Thankfully, we have some good Samaritans, and we have been coming to the fore to assist. Bravo to you, St. Lucia. Bravo. But in spite of all of this, there are issues and incidences that happen, that take place, and it really breaks our hearts. For me, children are a very near and dear subject. And when we lose one life unnecessarily, despite how challenged that life may have started or predicted to be, it's always hurtful when we lose that life. It is said that only a mother can tell you the experience of having lost a child. But if we take into consideration the old adage that it takes a village to raise a child, every single one of us should be touched by the story of a young mother who lost her toddler this weekend because of, allegedly, because we haven't been able to confirm that the child was not admitted to the hospital, although we know that the child had been sent home. But it would seem like our healthcare is yet again beleaguered. We continue to have healthcare woes in St. Lucia. And when you hear of that young child, 2 years old, suffering from cerebral palsy, and hearing the hurt and the pain that that mother and that father had to have gone through, knowing that the child was dying, and be denied basic health care at the hospital, you know, knowing that your child is not going to make it, just seeing that, you being with that child day in and day out and begging for that child to be admitted and be turned away, only to take your child home and moments later, having your child die. It's one thing for that child to have been suffering as unimaginable as it may be of cerebral palsy, and yet another thing to be denied care at our nation's hospitals, health centers, and care providers. Where is our humanity, St. Lucia? Do we care that that child was sent home to die? What about the Hippocratic oath that these physicians are to swear upon when becoming doctors? Did it not hurt your heart to see a mother plead for her child? I hope you felt a measure of that mother's pain when you heard of the demise of that child. That was not kosher, sir. When we come back, Last week we spoke, I promised you that I would visit the Lambird situation, and so the Lambird's brouhaha when we return on the other side of this break. Stay tuned.